Hi, welcome back to the Bonsai channel, brought to you by Dallas Bonsai Gardens. Today we're going to do some much needed work on a Korean Hornbeam. Now when I say much needed work, I'm talking about trimming back the branches. As you can probably notice, the tree has really grown out from the previous summer's growth. And we're also going to do a little bit of root pruning during our repotting. Notice the buds, how they begin to swell at this time of the year. Right now it's early March here in Texas, and the buds are beginning to swell, and it's my last opportunity now to do the type of work that needs to be done here. With the buds being swollen as they are now, too much longer and they'll be open and it'll be too late to do any type of work. So what we're going to do is we're going to start from the top, start trimming our branches back, and what we're going to do is we're going to taper everything so that we have a nice flow out. You can probably notice that some of these branches are so long they really need to be trimmed back in order to bring the whole tree back into the desired shape that it needs to be. Tilting the pot forward one more time, I'd like you to see just exactly what I'm talking about here. If you'll notice how long these branches are and how much really needs to be taken off in order to make the tree more desirable looking. So that's just what we're going to do right now. So starting at the very top, notice the bud right here. This is where I'm going to make my first cut. All my cuts are going to be done behind the bud, because that's where my next growth is going to come out at. And another one right here. One over here. Notice how long this top upper branch is. Way too long for the placement that it's at right now, so we're just going to take it off. Any type of branches that look like they might be dead will also come off. And then we're just going to work our way all the way down the tree until we have a real nice taper. So what I'm going to do now is continue working on this, and after this we're going to go outside and do some repotting. So for the time being, I'll continue working on this and I'll meet you outside. Well, here we are outside. We're going to start doing a little bit of repotting on this thing here now. There's probably an old saying that many of you remember, the thing where it says, the main thing is not to get excited. And the reason why I say that is so many beginners, when they even have the thought of taking a tree up out of its pot and messing around with the roots, it just boggles their mind that they can do something like that. But it's no big thing, and it's something that really needs to be done. Now this particular tree has a wire wrapped around its base on the inside to keep it from coming out of the pot. So what I need to do is turn the tree around and look for the wire and go ahead and use my wire snips here and cut this wire off before I attempt to take it off. And I think I just about have it right here. And there's the wire right there, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut this wire off right here. Now we're going to go ahead and see what it takes to pull this thing out of the pot here. Don't have to worry about the roots because they're plentiful, as you can probably see already. There we have it. A really good supply of roots in the past year. What we're going to do first of all here is just go ahead and shake the roots off. If you have a real good well-draining soil. Shouldn't have any problem. What you want to do at this time of the year really too is to find out just what kind of growth you've had, and it looks like we've had some really good growth throughout the past year, meaning our fertilizing program really did its job and we have a really good healthy tree here. What I'm going to do is take my root rake here and just take everything off a little bit more, get everything to hang down so I can see just exactly how much is going to need to be taken off here. As you can tell, that's a really good massive roots there growing throughout just 1 year's growth. Again, I want to mention the fact that these are only 1 year's growth of roots. If I hadn't taken this out right now to at least see what the roots look like, if I would have waited another year to repot this tree, the roots would have been so overwhelming that the tree might have started suffering from it. I doubt it for sure that in the climate that I live in, that another year without trimming these roots would have helped this tree at all. It probably would have hurt it very much. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to start cutting now. And there's really no rules as to what you need to do here. Because as I says, with 1 year's growth and a good feeding program, these roots are going to be back in no time. If you have any doubt on any of your trees, especially if you're doing trident maples, you need to at least lift the tree up out of the pot to see just how much roots you have. If you have too many roots, they're definitely going to need to come off. And that's usually the case with these kind of trees, and with trident maples in particular. At this time of the year is the time you want to do this kind of work on your deciduous type trees. Now, what you want to keep in mind is, if you live in a climate where there's still a good possibility of a freeze, after you do your root work here, your tree is going to need to be put in some kind of a shelter to keep it away from the freezing temperatures. These new roots are going to start growing back in a few weeks, and they're going to have real fine roots coming out of them. And they're going to be too susceptible to freezing temperatures. An unheated garage would work perfect, or any other way you can helpfully stop the roots from freezing if you should get another freeze. So here we are now, ready to put the tree back inside its pot. I put a thin layer of soil on the bottom here, as you can see. One thing you want to always remember is while you're doing your work on your pots, cleaning your pots up, and allowing your tree to set aside, make sure you keep those roots moist. They need to be moist, because the roots will dry out so fast that you won't believe it. Okay, we've got our tree inside our pot now. We've got our wires back here ready to wired back inside. But one thing I want to point out, if you'll notice how the tree seems to be leaning to your right a bit, makes it look a little unstable. We're going to correct that. And the way we're going to correct that mainly is just by putting more soil on that end there to tilt it up. We're going to go ahead and take up some of our soil here with our little scoop and add it to the right side here, making it somewhat of a little hill on the side here. See what that looks like. Maybe a little bit more. Just a tad more. Much better. Okay, we're ready to start adding our new soil now. We have a few roots here that are extending up above the pot. I'm going to push them down inside, just like so, and start adding our well-draining soil. And what you want to do, many people take a chopstick. I like to use my fingers because I can feel exactly what's going on in here. And pat this soil down inside to where it needs to be. like so. Yeah, I have some really big voids back here that I can really feel with my fingers that need to be pressed down. That's why I like to use my fingers rather than a chopstick, because I can really feel what's going down in there. You don't want to leave any air pockets. You want everything to be filled up with good soil. I got a real big one right back in here. But work like this is something that no one should really be afraid of if you're going to do bonsai. You have to learn to do this stuff because it's so very important. Styling is what makes your tree look good. This kind of work is what keeps your tree alive, healthy. Okay, the next thing now would be to start watering our tree in. Using a well-draining soil. Notice there's no puddling. Now, one thing you want to keep in mind is on a new pot like this, on a new potting time like this soil is going to be very loose and there's going to be a lot of air in there. So you're going to need to keep watering this soil really good for a couple of months to make sure your roots are getting real well watered until that soil packs down in there more. You really need to keep that in mind because that soil is so loose now, so well draining, especially if you live somewhere in the south where there's a climate where it really gets warm. You're going to need to make sure that this soil stays moist because it's going to dry up real fast. So there we are, repotted, branches trimmed back to give it better shape. One thing you don't have to worry about is when you trim the branches, don't worry about taking too much off on this type of tree. On these type of trees, the hornbeams and your maples, they're going to throw out shoots that are going to be so long that it won't be too much longer. We'll be almost back to where we started from. So you don't have to worry about taking too much off. But one thing I want to point out to you though, when you are doing your trimming on your branches, always make sure that your pot is placed at a point where you're working at eye level. Always trim your tree, style your tree at eye level, never looking down at it. This way, when the time comes, you decide to enter your tree maybe in a contest, or if you would like to just show it online, you always take your pictures at eye level, and that's the way your tree should be styled and trimmed. So always make sure you do that way. Well, I hope that this early spring work on a Korean hornbeam, the repotting, the trimming of the branches was some help to you. This is stuff that really needs to be done at this time of the year, and for those of you that are still, which would be considered beginners, try not to fear this kind of work because it's stuff that needs to be done. And I hope you'll drop by again. Thank you.